From accepting that he's biased to claiming that the one thing they did right on the night was Joel Embiid, the 76ers coach Doc Rivers believes the MVP race is over, and he believes Joel Embiid is the obvious choice for it.
I'm really, like tonight, we couldn't make shots. We had guys making shots, wood open shots. The man just scored half our points in the NBA game. And I'm biased, but the MVP race is over.
Can't say he's wrong, to be honest. Even an NBA casual would think the same if they saw what Joel Embiid did against the Boston Celtics. And honestly, he was scary. With the playoffs coming up next, the Eastern Conference should definitely be afraid of what he can do. But while everyone's excited about the playoffs, there isn't much left to play for in the East, at least. The one thing that still hasn't been decided is the MVP debate. That said, if Doc Rivers was to decide the MVP, that would be confirmed too. He believes that Joel Embiid is the clear winner, and it shouldn't be a surprise after the kind of consistency he's shown. While Doc was highly critical of his team's performance, tearing the players for not turning up despite their win over Boston, explaining how as a team they did many things wrong, he was full of praise for the one thing they did do right, which was Joel Embiid and his monster impact throughout the game. Rivers was full of praise for his star center, adding how as the rest of the team struggled to make shots, the 29-year-old was playing a different game because he came up with half the team's points.
Joel, of course, going right at Kessler, comes to a nice jump stop, sweet gather.
Some would probably claim that, of course, Rivers would say all this, and he accepts the being biased tag, but believes that regardless, the MVP race is still over. To be fair, he wasn't the only one in awe of Embiid. The Celtics were collectively impressed by his display. Yep, Jason Tatum and his men were at the end of a tough loss against the 76ers, and the Celtics star made an honest observation, claiming that Embiid obviously had a good game from a rival who had just suffered a loss. That's the most you can get, honestly. But Tatum's not a sore loser. He knows greatness when he sees it, and accepted that Embiid willed his team to victory over the Celtics.
White looking. Tatum turns, fires, off the mark. The Sixers hold on.
Further solidifying Rivers' opinion, if the MVP was to be decided on that game night, then there can be only one player, and that's the 76ers' leading man. The Celtics had the chance of completing a season sweep over the Sixers, but with Joe Mazzulla's men faltering at the finish line, he too detailed that the Celtics did most things right. However, they couldn't handle the heat that Embiid brought. Mazzulla said that the offense from his team wasn't elite, and they didn't foul Embiid either. And he's right. They did the basics right, that you need to do when handling number 21. But if he's in the mood, which he was, then there's no stopping him. It truly was an outrageous performance from him. 52 points, 13 rebounds in 39 minutes is no joke. While he wasn't the only player to come up with a double-double on the night, as Harden managed it too. Embiid truly dominated both ends of the floor with relative ease.
That last one, like I said, that's not good enough. We gotta be better.
52 points while making 20 of your 25 shots is as impressive as it gets. If that wasn't enough, he also produced 2 blocks on the other end of the floor, along with 13 rebounds. They keep the Celtics at bay. This type of display actually only goes to show that Embiid has been carrying the Sixers throughout the season. They may have a former MVP on their roster and a couple of seriously good young players, but it really is Embiid who makes them tick. In fact, I believe he deserves a lot more credit than he's getting. And one way to do that would be for him to win the MVP this season. What most people can't quite wrap their head around is the way Embiid's been scoring effortlessly. His scoring has been truly extraordinary this season. But that's not exactly true, is it? He's been extraordinary in getting buckets for 3 consecutive seasons now. Embiid scored 28.5 points per game on 51% shooting in only 31 minutes back in the 2020-2021 season. Last year, he won the scoring title, averaging 30.6 points on 50% shooting from the field, and he's got that honor this season again. It has been more or less confirmed after the Mavericks lost to the Chicago Bulls, and Luka Doncic ended the night with only 13 points. The Slovenian is expected to miss the Mavs back-to-back against the San Antonio Spurs on the final day of regular season, because his team's already out of play-in contention.
Roster ran him the other. Spinning into free throw line. Tough shot. And ride him down for Luka.
Doncic is currently averaging 32.4 points per game, and that's probably the tally with which he'll end the season. Embiid, on the other hand, already has 33.1 points per night, and after sitting out the game against the Atlanta Hawks, the 76ers star man will definitely play their final game of the season against the Brooklyn Nets, and would hope to make a statement in the dead rubber against their Eastern Conference rivals, who they'll be facing over a 7-game series in the first round of the playoffs as well. But before we get to the postseason, it's only fair to talk about the MVP race, right? For Doc Rivers, the MVP race is dead and buried. That comes a week after both coaches, Rivers and Michael Malone, talked about the ugly discourse around the MVP debate. It definitely needed addressing, and they were both right in talking about it. I don't think there's a need to recap the Kendrick Perkins fiasco again, but despite all that, the Philly coach just couldn't help but praise his superstar and explain how he really is the MVP as far as he's concerned. That thinking seems to be mirrored by what the Kia MVP ladder suggests as well, with Joel Embiid seemingly reclaiming the top spot. But they've also cautioned that the race isn't really over. That's understandable. It's one of the tightest MVP races in NBA history, and Nikola Jokic can maintain that he doesn't care about the award, but he's very much in the discussions, no matter what he says.
You know what? I'm inside. I'm just going to do a little shot fake here. Get my defender on his toes, go up and finish through the contact.
Unfortunately for the Serbian's claims to his third consecutive MVP bid, he hasn't played a lot in the last few games for the Nuggets. Of course, there's not much need for any action, too, as Denver has the top spot in the West on lock and want to rest ahead of a big postseason. But the couple of times that Jokic has played in the last couple of weeks, he's not been at his raging best. In fact, he might just miss out on a triple-double for the season, unless he can come up with something crazy in the final game of the regular season. That's because he's averaging 9.8 assists right now, and there's just one game left, meaning that over the final stretch, Embiid might just have convinced the masses, and Doc probably got his prediction spot on, because while Jokic was sitting out matches for the Nuggets, Embiid was racking up points and possibly MVP votes. He only missed 2 of the last 10 games for the Sixers, and will probably play the final game of the regular season, trying to end the season on a high with a big performance. Regardless of what he does against the Nets, though, Embiid is definitely the favorite for his first ever MVP title. But like the player himself pointed out, there are bigger things to fight for because the Sixers have a chance of going deep in the playoffs too. And that's all I have on Doc Rivers saying that the MVP race is over.